From a workshop in Bordeaux to Ultimate Fields worldwide, Force Ultimate creates custom gear with care. Locally made, low impact, built to perform. No outsourcing, no shortcuts, every piece crafted in-house by skilled artisans. Built to withstand every dive and sprint, this gear is as tough as your game. Your sport, your team, your Force. Why choose Force? Exceptional quality, eco-friendly production, and every kit is designed with your team's identity in mind. Force Ultimate, built to perform, made to last. Gear up now at Force Ultimate.
Welcome to our coverage of the European Youth Ultimate Championships 2025 in Trnava, Slovakia. And we have a brilliant bronze medal matchup for you. It is Belgium versus France, a revenge tale for a couple of returning athletes here on our wonderful field in front of us. Myself, Hannah Pendlebury, alongside John Doherty on the call. John, you were smack talking these two teams a little bit. Is it some fortunes that's been dashed and some hopes that have risen?
I wasn't sure if it was going to be mentioned on the stream so early, but yeah, I think both these teams are going to have different opinions on maybe if they should have made the final or not. I think one of them, in my opinion, clearly the second best team at this tournament. One of them potentially maybe lucky to be here, although it's not the one you would think maybe.
Well, of course, both teams coming in with the same record, 6 wins and 1 defeat, both by the finalists because they topped the pools. Of course, France here coming out of Pool A against Romania, Israel, Ukraine, Switzerland, Germany and the Czech Republic. Of course, the Germans coming out of nowhere to defeat the Belgians on the semi-final stage.
Yeah, coming out of nowhere potentially, or maybe you could say a slight imbalance in the groups, as maybe Italy somewhat responsible that. I know the Czech side were pretty unhappy to see the Italians lose to the Belgians, but you can see here the Belgian results, wins all the way until, I guess you could say, when it mattered, and then they lose to the Germans, who basically avoided being knocked out of the group on the group stages by 1 point. Had they scored one less point, they wouldn't even have made it to the crossover, yet they're going to be in the final. So again, in my opinion, one team slightly ahead of the group here, and then a lot of other teams competing for what was next. But this is the third place game we have now, so interesting to know how these teams are going to be looking at it. Third place games are always weird. I think this one could be the weirdest of the lot.
Well, we have had some fantastic bronze medal matches, and congratulations to those that will be taking the podium tomorrow. Of course, locking in our final one. No nation able to do a clean sweep, and it is by virtue of the Italians knocking out the French earlier on today. Although in terms of your expectations, John, I don't think you've been necessarily paying attention to how much of this Belgian roster, of which only 2 will age out after this cycle is complete this season. 6 of them have been on this charge since 2023. So that is also a collection up from the youth divisions, the U17s, where of course Belgium and France met in the crossovers, the quarterfinals, and knocked out of that top 4. So a little bit of revenge potentially for the U17s now joining the charge. But Belgium to start out on offense. And the French just playing pretty intense match-up field. Slowing things down just a touch. Nice one through to Onganat, but it slips away from the fingers. So the first opportunity for a break, and they're going to try and do it with one solitary pass. It's going to fall out of bounds, though, and just making sure is, of course, Pierre-Jan de Vos.
Yeah, both teams with a turn here early. Again, it would be very brave to make any kind of prediction on this game. It really could, in my opinion, based on what I think these teams are expecting, I could see either team blowing out the other team, or I could see this going to universe. It really depends on how the coaches and how the players come into this game mentally. I think that's probably going to be the biggest deciding factor in this game. If they both come in at their best, I think the French win it by a couple of points. But again, a third place game. 2 teams potentially disappointed or feeling they missed out on a chance to make it to the final at this event.
Spanquali finds De Vos. I think there's a no look to Onganat. And the French That flat set of handlers trying to cause issues in the lanes. And now just this very simple backhand, a little bit of separation found for Vadim Andréan. And that will be a hold for Belgium to start the proceedings.
Yeah, they get it at the second time of asking, and I feel that in terms of energy levels and such, I feel it's going to be the Belgians who are going to be the most likely ones to come out and keep the energy up. So if it does come down to a game on which team I think is going to have, again, some people say they hate the phrase, who might want it a little bit more. I think coming into the event, obviously I think both these teams would have been eyeing medals, but I think when I was going through the player profiles, a number of the French players, the main thing they were mentioning is winning that gold medal and feeling they've missed out in some previous years, kind of almost some of them saying they're almost sick of getting silver. So now that they're playing for bronze, it's hard to know how that might affect things. But I think the Belgians obviously losing to the Germans by a couple of points. I don't want to say they probably came into that game thinking they were going to make the finals, but if you had been watching the other group closely, the Germans had some games where they struggled a bit. So I think the fact that the Belgians had beaten the Italians, everyone might have just presumed that the Belgians were going to win that game. But again, Italians, sometimes they're a bit weird with how they approach games. So,
well, Negre, the stats leader for the French Open side at this tournament, in that number 3, as the Belgians now come out, just playing simple match defense. A slip to a vertical stack. And Wu pops back in those hot pink cleats. High release backhand. We've seen all the teams on our showcase field find plenty of love with those today. A very calm, soft evening, barely a caress of the breeze. Charret pops that forward and then takes the up line. Now it's Wu. Looking around, keeping the mark guessing. But now Negre will post it in, and a layout to just seal the deal. A whistle clean hold for the French.
yeah, and I think if the French come into this playing well, I think we can expect to see a lot of passages of play like that. I haven't seen as much of the Belgians playing, but from what I've seen of the French, in my opinion, clearly, again, they're obviously not in the final, so it might sound funny to say, but in my opinion, they're clearly the second best team at this event. But it doesn't really matter if you don't win the games when they count, and in my opinion, they ran into the best team at the event in their semi-final, and the Belgians have beaten that team. So again, just because you maybe should be beating teams doesn't mean you're always going to get the ideal draw to get here. So again, Belgian offense there on the first one, they turned, they got it back and they scored, and the French offense, they're a lot cleaner. And I think best chance for the Belgians in this game is if they can make this a bit of a messy game. And I've said it in 1 or 2 games already. What you really want from if you're the Belgian side here, is you want both O-lines turning over, and that shows it's a game where it's going to be a bit messy and you can capitalize on it. And if you're the French, you'd probably be happier if you're seeing that it's the O-lines are having a more clean start. So I think whatever kind of game this turns into in the first few points, I think that's how you're going to determine who wins. If it's a lot of turnovers by O-lines, I favour the Belgians to maybe take it. If it's a lot of clean O points, it's going to be the French. And obviously, if one O-line decides to have a lot of turns and the other doesn't, then that answers itself. So messy game for the Belgians is key, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, there's plenty of experience. We talked about the cumulative averages, 6.93 years for Belgium, 7.63 years for the French. And the longest standing is Jasper Moulian in the number 79. He's been playing this sport for 11, talking about his roster number, 11 years.
Oh, he doesn't top the 13 by a French player, number 20, Perez. Almost, he's actually playing as long as some of the players at this tournament are alive, and for that to happen in a junior division is crazy. But
well, it's a high stall, curving backhand. It's going to arc to that back corner. Dekane no, not Decana, that's Wolf Panemans. Initially looks like it, and Van Tuna is going to take the goal. Well, that is the Belgian style we're very familiar with seeing, big shots to big lads.
Yeah, again, like I said, I haven't seen a ton of them, but watching their German game, that's not what I saw a lot of, and perhaps that's reflected in the scoreline. They had a lot of messy turns on the short passes, and I think the Belgians, from my experience playing against Belgian teams anyway, it was the deep game and the aggressive throws, maybe more established in clubs like Gentle and Mooncatchers in recent years, but I imagine that filters down to the youth as well. When it comes to who's going to be better in the short game, it's clearly going to be the French, and again, I didn't get to see as much of the French game against the Italians, so it's hard to know how good their deep game is. But they didn't need to use it a whole lot in their group, and perhaps if you're the Belgians, again, like I've said in a couple of games, basically against the French and Italians, they're going to beat you on the unders, and they're going to beat you for skill most of the time. So what you want to do is, if you have an athletic advantage, high risk, high reward game, and a bit of a messy game suits it. And again, that's kind of just the default for how to try and potentially beat a team that has more disc skills than you, and that might be key for the Belgians in this game.
Well, I guess the charge has been put down from the commentary booth for Belgium to show us exactly what they're capable of achieving, but they're going to have to take it off with the French first.
It's basically the exact same advice I gave to the Belgian women this morning when they were playing against France, so it just applies countrywide, I guess.
Charot, lovely inside backhand break. Fayol through, Necre now. Nothing too stressful. And then Péchard, the youngest, Noah, in that 45. Of course, you're used to seeing that name on the back of French jerseys for years. Quick flicks. And then turns away, does Fayol. And a slip after the throw and a miss. So an opportunity for the Belgians to have a sniff at a break for the first time.
I think it was Ethan Petit with the block there.
Well, Petit by name, but not by nature. Abuses the face mark. And then launches to the deep space. They have separation. The disc hangs, though, and there is pressure upon it. Cannot make the grasp as Diego Wilkin. So one turn apiece. With both teams having a clean hold on board. One scuff for the Belgians. Can they put on the pressure and get another break opportunity? Necre, high release. Oh, that is a saucy dish if ever there was. The pressure underneath it, but the height mismatch. Nothing that Delanotte can do about that one. Just straight up sky ball for Perez.
Yeah, when he pivoted back in from the flick to throw it, I was sure he was going to go for the big outside in backhand to basically put his offensive receiver in a position where he had the Belgian player boxed out, but he decided to just throw the inside out backhand and say, well, I'm just going to throw it up and let my player go and get it. And I guess there's two ways you could look at it. Either he wasn't aware that maybe the backhand outside in was easier, or he is a very high level player and he realized by throwing it inside out it's an absolute nightmare for the Belgian defender to try and get a block on it. So it's one or the other, and given the grab, I'm going to say he just wanted to make it difficult, or else he just trusted his receiver to do what he did. I'm sure these guys know each other better than I do.
Well, Belgium inches away from a break, and I have to say, correction for our scoreboard. Of course, it wasn't the 20 shirt, it was the number 29, Gabriel Donat. The Sanois boy using every one of his 186 centimetre frame there.
Again, so far, the kind of somewhat messy nature of the game, I would say it's slightly more messy so far. I think it suits the Belgians a little bit more.
Well, all leveled up at twos, not a break in the game just yet between our bronze medal contenders. Smoothly moving. That little no look. Wolf Panamans, though, of course, plenty of experience, including on the U24 cycle. Nice escape from danger there as they give go action and falling over and then on the floor, just about makes the catch. No, that's on the floor, that's called turnover.
Yeah, I was unsure for a moment. It looked like he had no chance, and then suddenly there was a moment of pause. I think nobody was sure if he had it or not, but unable to hold on to it. And I think that might be the second slip by the Belgians, and a bit unfortunate there, but they have the French pinned in the back corner now, so.
That is indeed the second O-line turnover for the Belgians, but pinning the French in their own territory. Callahan country. Nice slice it through to Chevalier. Going to have a lot of air underneath that one, but the defense gets a little bit too hasty. Scrambling through now, milking every drop out of the give-go. Gilbert, one of the ultimate siblings here for the French delegation, now through. Caligaro doesn't like that one to Gilbert. Just spins it around, and that is your first break on the board into the hands of Simeon Bardin.
Yeah, again, really clinical D-line offense there by the French, and expect that to be the case. The Belgians aren't really going to be able to afford to have too many turnovers in this game. When I talk about the kind of messiness of the game, it's more about generating pressure on the French's O-line. I think the D-line, again, after their game with Italy, I think they had a more, how to describe it, a high-intensity game against the Italians, and I think that's going to make this style of play where they're able to grind the unders and inside breaks and short passes and the more kind of explosive play. I think they've come out of that a bit more, whereas I feel like the Belgian game with Germany was slightly slower paced and more about the technicalities of the game and patience. And I think with that in mind, if you're going to try and play a short ball game, you're going to have to stop the French with the short ball game, because it's probably going to be on fire after they used the last game, shall we say, as a warm-up, even though it was a semi-final.
Well, they were trying to use it as a warm-up for a final performance. Of course, they just couldn't quite get themselves over the edge. The Italians were their opponents the last time out at the EYUC, but it was a very difficult route through, of course, at the World Championships back in Birmingham. They had to go toe-to-toe against the Canadians in that semi. And lost that one 15-12, did many of the athletes out here on the pitch, but it's the Belgians seeking the opportunity. Delanotte through to Decana. Oh, there's separation downfield, but there's great awareness from Erwan Paré. Now that's experience you can't teach.
Yeah, I think he had the player free and he threw it well, but just unfortunate, just threw it into the one spot where there was some French hands. And
well, that's what happens when you throw over the stack, and a beautiful leader into the space. I think that one was Paré's the whole time, one of the spirit captains of this French side.
Yeah, and again, this is not what you obviously you never want to see it, but I think you're hoping as the Belgians, if you were going to say which team needs to get a bit of a lead at the start, that they could maybe have a better chance of holding on to, I would say that it would have been the Belgians. I think if they don't get a little refocus here and get a couple of points on the board soon, and there's a bit of a danger that perhaps the French could run away with it, because, like I said, the French are just, I realize both these teams are playing such a long time, but for me, just the French experience, I just think it's going to pay off more if they get a lead. It's going to be so much harder to get it back.
Well, in terms of the experience, there is a lot of wonderful junior championships amongst the kind of domestic scene of this French side. Big shout out to all the F5s, the Tsunamis, the Jets, the Freeze Goes, to name but a few. And the Frisselies.
Yeah, and one thing with this Belgian team, I think they only have maybe one or two players who won't be returning next time, and they have a lot of players who have another 2 years. So there's maybe that one extra year of experience almost on average on the French team. And again, it's a very interesting game when you factor that in. But again, Belgium's just going to have to look here and get some 0 points to start anyway.
Well, no, I have to say it's pretty much same on. I mean, the French are only losing 3 from their roster. They'll have everybody else available to try out for the next iteration of French U20s at the World Championships in Logroño. So, I mean, there's lots of disappointment. I'm sure those that are aging out will be, you know, having a bitter taste, but they're going to have another go at bat for many of them at the world level. And of course, that's a little bit extra excitement, and that's exciting indeed. Wolf Pannemans goes up high. That's a really nice execution on the blading forehand from Andréan.
Yeah, that's such a good throw, and that's the kind of offense I'm expecting to see from the Belgians here. Kind of blady flick, more outside in, and just puts it where the defender has to just run it down and catch it. Gives the defense no chance, and it's a higher risk of the turn when you get those wrong because they go up and down so fast. But again, these Belgians are going to be used to playing like that, so there isn't as much risk for them when they're throwing these as maybe you might think. If you're seeing the French throwing more of those throws, you might think it's maybe more likely to lead to turnovers. But the Belgians, really strong, aggressive, deep game, and all their players, I'm sure, are confident of making throws like that, making it look easy. Those throws are not as easy as he made it look.
Well, you talked about the Belgians needing a messy game. At the moment, it's all been about how clean everything has become. Just those 2 points so far that have had 1 turnover apiece. Everything else has been either excellence from O-lines or D-lines getting it done doggedly. So 2 breaks for the French, looking to just put a signature, an autograph on the end of this tournament campaign.
Yeah, looking at the French now, they're maybe a bit taller than I give them credit for. There's a couple of big guys out there, all right, so might not be so easy to beat them on the deep game as I potentially thought, but.
Oh yes, they have one athlete who, of course, who else but Noah Pachard, is 188 centimeters. He's a big fish. Nice grind underneath and a little skid at the line for Wu.
Credit to our cameraman, not even a flinch.
Vitailleux around. Vitailleux is one of those athletes that will be aging out and will just have to settle for playing U24s. The heart doesn't really break because, of course, that's one of our favorite divisions, as well as U20s. But just putting the puzzle pieces together, that is really mature, composed offense into the paws of Fernandez.
Yeah, another nice clinical offense there by the French. I think the O-line has had 1 turnover, but other than that, they've looked like they're not really under any pressure. So, again, Belgium's going to maybe have to try some different defenses because at the moment it just looks like France are just going to work the unders. And again, like I said, I think that's exactly what they got so many reps of in the last game, that kind of game. And Belgians are going to probably just have to try something a little different on the defense because maybe potentially only 1 turn so far, and the French just, it's looking like it's easy. I don't think there's been too many stalls that have gotten that high either. So.
Well, at the moment, it does look to be in control of the French, but the Belgians have a lot of grit, and they've got a massive cheering section as well. Of course, famously having brought more parents and supporters to the fields in Trnava than they have athletes across the entire 3 squads of Belgians at this European Championship.
Well, on average, it would make sense, given on average, you usually have, I guess, like 1.8 for everyone. So, no, it should be 2, but some parents obviously can't make the trip, but maybe they get cancelled out by brothers and sisters and aunties and dogs and everything. So,
indeed, and a big shout out to both the French and the Belgian fans watching from back home. Really pleased to have you with us, because of course the supporters can't hear our dulcet tones on the sideline. But that is as soft and smooth as they'll ever be. Wolf Pannemans with the goal, and a smooth cruise for the Belgians.
Yeah, that's 2 pretty easy scores now in a row for the Belgians. Again, the French now maybe are the ones that need to start considering if they need to slightly adjust their defense, because both these teams, I think what they would want is to see the other team playing offense the way that their O-line is playing. So I think if you're the Belgians, you wanna see the French have to use the deep game a bit more, and if you are the French, you want to see the Belgians have to work the under game a bit more. Easier said than done, but I think based on the last couple of points we've seen, there's a clear trend of each team is kind of expecting how you would be expecting them to score if you just looked at the name on the jersey.
Well, that was a really brilliant throw. Vadim Andrian coming up from the U17s level, showing us exactly what he is capable of achieving. And the drum on the sideline starting to try and get the crowd involved.
Great pull. Defense should be down there to stop that first pass.
Yeah, fantastic. Inside break to get things churning. You can see still, despite the heat of the day, drying off these pitches. They are a little bit slippy underfoot, but there's going to be no mistakes there. Just a battle in the end zone and an easy box out. Well, taking a leaf out of the Belgian playbook, go the French, boosting it the full stretch.
Yeah, and like I said, I know that looks somewhat easy again for the French, but I would much rather see them scoring that way if I'm the Belgians, because the last few points, they haven't looked like turning over. And at least on this one, okay, the throw was pretty much perfect, but you had a defender basically jumping with the player, and even if he just goes a little bit early, that's the closest they've come to looking like they're going to get a block, other than that one turn where they had on the inside dump, I believe it was, where they got the layout D on the under. This is the closest they've looked to getting to anything, and it was off the first deep shot by the French. So if you can make the French throw that for the whole game and they catch every single one of them, then you know what, the French showed they can play the under game and the deep game, and sometimes you just have to say, hey, if they can beat us both ways, there's no shame in losing. But I still would rather see that if I was the Belgian coach than what I saw in the last 2 points. So.
Well, also key will be if the Belgians don't remain perfect for the rest of the game. Playing recovery at the moment, it's been the brutality of the defense. When they get the disc in the hands of that French D-line, at the moment they are 2 for 3 on break opportunities. Panamans this time going to be the one shooting deep. That's going to be a little bit too far, surely. Yes, full stretch does go. Great effort. But Stern Angenat unable to make the collection when it matters.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the cutter had potentially started to cancel his cut just as it would throw, and it looked like when I saw the throw go up, it looked like the cutter wasn't at full speed. So I'm not sure if he maybe wasn't fully sure if the deep cut was going to come or whatever. But based on where I first saw him when that hook went up, I thought he was going to run it down, but he didn't seem to be at top speed till the end, and he ended up getting very close. So I think he's capable of running that one down if he can get one step cut 1 step earlier. And French shooting deep again. That's what you want to see if you're the Belgians, I think.
A big battle, contact on the follow through, and I think we might get an injury substitution. Yes, all's fair in Frisbee there, but Simeon Bardin is going to have to take a little moment to just figure out his legs.
Yeah, he's unable to come down with that one. But again, like I said, the French showing 2 deep shots in a row. The last one was really good, and I think this one was probably, it was slightly worse option, but the fact is they got the turnover and the player just missed the disc. They're not going to miss the disc completely on the unders, but on the deep shots they feel that extra pressure, and the Belgians get it back straight away.
Well, Panamans having to do the work with the disc. Another slip. Perhaps the blades of grass a little bit long as this week has continued. Of course, semi-finals and Bronze Friday always gives us thrills, and hopefully not too many more spills. It's been a nice dry week. De Slova pops back. De Force with the riser on the high release. Into the end zone, and that is a nicely weighted leading pass. Vadim Andrian, having shot for a couple of goals, now collects.
Yeah, and again, Belgians shoot deep, get it back on a deep shot, go the other way again and score. So again, I think people are used to saying, talking about when they talk about flair, they talk about with the French, but I think again, it's going to suit the Belgians more. Just seeing the scoopers there and those type of throws just opening up the space made the next couple of passes easy as we start to hear that's a Belgian trumpet playing, even though, again, for anyone who's ever looked at other sports, I always associate that as a French I don't know what you call it, a tune.
Yeah, jingle, like a
Jingle, yeah, jingles, yeah. So to me, that's French. I hear that, but
I just makes me think of the IPL. Bit of cricket for you. Well, either way, we are blessed to have sunshine, smiles, and full sidelines. Our spectators just enjoying the scenes here. Of course, tomorrow, a full set of gold medal matchups. That one starts at 9 a.m. for our women's division final and continues all throughout the afternoon. So if you've got Saturday plans, get on WhatsApp, text, call, cancel them, and make sure you're enjoying the coverage here from Trnava. So the Belgians coming out with a zone. It's the big man Trnava at the back. But of course the French will say yum yum as they cook up some cuisine, find their way through it.
yeah, and if they're going to do this zone, I want to see them push up more. So far it's been all kind of unders and somewhat easy passes. They need to generate some overheads.
Nice bopping around, running and gunning. Le Tailleur in that 30 in the little hat. That requires a little bit of an adjustment, but all fine for Negre. And I think we've got a melt to match now from the Belgians. Just trying to sag and switch where they can. And indeed, the call from the sideline echoes. But that's a miss. A little bit too much sauce placed on that disc, and it slips out of the paws of Wu. Difficult catch with that outstretched one hand, but Trnava sends that through, just about snatching away as Dumont. Plenty of space given to the young man, but that is just going to be way too big, even for the monster that is Staf Trnava.
Yeah, just needed that extra little bit of spin on it. It's a bit unfortunate. It looked like when he let it go, it looked good, and based on the weather conditions, I thought initially he was just going to run that one down, but it just didn't hang, and I'm a bit surprised, a bit unlucky.
Well, earlier today, that one for EYUC would have hung like a dream. But it's the French quickly advancing. Swinging around. Charot up. And then Le Tailleur spins away, leaves the mark for dust. Kind of getting away with that one. Pick cool. Although if that one had gone, I'm sure Staf Trnava, who's just sitting in the backspace, would have done something to try and nullify any French deep shot. Back in play. Arthur Negre pops through. Caligaro. And a foul call before the throw. That one will snap back, roll back the VT. Tristan Wu, the Courtry boy. Just that casual dad backhand up that. Charret. Then to Le Tailleur. Going all the way around with the fakes and then posts over the shoulder to Wu. This is really good containment from the Belgians. Perez. And a flurry across to Charret. Not quite for Wu. Just shy, just needing to nudge it over the end zone line. But they're going to swing all the way around, nice and confident. Happy to play through. Negre. This time it is enough, and a little spike through the legs for the roller.
Yeah, the Belgians got the turn early. Again, I still feel they were a bit unlucky on that hook when they shot deep. It was very difficult to overthrow the receiver on that one. Sometimes you can almost throw it too well, and French going back the other way and just swinging it, moving it really well, and not a whole lot the Belgians could do about that second one. Again, they are playing pretty tight. I think we can see a lot of the slipping, and we haven't seen too much slipping this week, and I think it's just that just that extra bit of speed you sometimes get with the high level open teams, where they're just moving slightly quicker than everyone else at the event, and a couple of slips based on the pressure. So again, there's good intensity by both these teams. It's still relatively close. Belgians are going to need to get some breaks back, but right now they're still in the game, and I think if they can get one break before half, that's probably all they really need to go into the second half very confident with the position they're in. But the French here, if they can get a break, take half, and come out on offense in the next one, it's a very, very difficult situation then for the Belgians. So I feel like this point here is pretty critical to the game. If the French get it, it might be a very tall order for the Belgians to come back. But if the Belgians get it, they get to 6 before half. It's not a bad position, and they give themselves a chance to get one more break back and get right back in it to make it level.
Well, easy start of the out-of-bounds ball. Panamans driving away after releasing that one. Now de Force. Little hesitation. Oh, that's going to go all the way through. Valiant effort to try and back it up, but I'm not entirely sure who that was supposed to hit.
I think that was supposed to be about 2 meters higher and drop down to the person who ended up bidding for it, but I think he just misdrew it. It was a difficult one because his momentum's taking him this way, and he tries to step back in and throw the flick, and that's a really high level throw. And again, he is one of the probably the better players on this team, but that's not an easy throw to pull off when your momentum's going one way and to step back in. Especially on the flick side. If you're stepping back to throw the backhand, it's a little easier, but that kind of step back onto your foot and throw the flick, you have to be doing a lot of gym work to even have the confidence to try and throw that one. Even on my wildest days, I'd be knowing I'm throwing a very aggressive throw when I'm going for something like that.
Looking for the give-go, lots of chopping steps from this French side, and that's a brilliant pick-off defensive block for Mats de Klerk.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the offensive thrower saw there. From our point of view here, it looked like that was almost more to the defender, but good awareness on the defense to be the heads up and get the block.
Well, de Force dancing around, has to make the layout, and that has come down a little bit awkward on the landing. That would be a really big loss, because Jan de Force has been a really core part of the handler set for the Belgians. Will be replaced by fellow cannon for an arm, Howard Delanotte.
I think most players that would replace him probably cannons for arms on this team, but
so a missed opportunity for the French, but they're going to get a second shot at it.
Yeah, again, like I said, critical point here. If France get this, they're in such a good position going into half, or coming into the second half.
Well, you say that. We say that the 8-5 is one of the most dangerous score lines in all of Ultimate. Panamans, after that quick movement, has an easy shot to the back corner, Stern Ongenart, and that will hold off the end of the first half at least a little while longer.
Yeah, and Belgians here now with a chance to put on a power line. They know if they concede, they get the halftime break anyway, so potentially they'll just go straight forward. I don't think there's much need to call the timeout. I imagine the Belgians at this stage know the line they want to put on, and maybe a little bit of momentum there, 1 or 2 turns by the French. They probably feel like, hey, let's just get it going straight away. There's no need to give the French an opportunity to talk about how to slot it in, but not sure. The French seem to be walking back very slowly, but it looks like we're going to get straight back underway, but I'm surprised. I don't know if we saw a timeout this half, but again, I don't really think there's much need for one here.
No, I don't believe we've seen any yet. But
perhaps wait until the poll's about to go up, and then you just call it, so you get to see what 7 players they're going to put on the line, and then you just call your timeout and get your matchups. That might be an approach as well. But if a team did that to me, I'd just switch my O-line.
Well, you wouldn't know that they're, trying to figure out their matchups. It might be something else gone astray. But yeah, you don't really see too much of the game within the game currently within Ultimate, but it's a coming, folks. A big launch, a little bit of hastiness there perhaps, and over the top with the rip, Staff de Khan.
Game changer kind of grab there, posterizes the offensive receiver. That was a big one.
A little bit of collateral contact as players try and grind themselves open. And it's a flurry of Frenchmen. And that one never makes it back in bounds. Noé Motkin, not sure what he was thinking. Another opportunity squandered again for the Belgian D-line.
Yeah, but again, I just want to go back to how good that grab was to do it so clean as well. And people often use the word skied, and I think most of the time people overuse it. But that one looked like a legit one where I think the French player was jumping up and then he just kind of realizes, where did the disc go? It's happened to me once in all my years playing where I was like, I'm going to get it. And the other guy just got up there over me and got it first.
It's called a posterizing grab, that one. Charret to get us going. Necre across. Pick up field. Surely.
And one thing about those kind of grabs, when you know someone does that to you, it's in your head a bit for the rest of the game. And expect if that matchup happens again for the French player to start jumping up a bit early.
Tries to attack the inside, and that is the softest, featheriest lead to Negre. Trying to get a little bit extra out of the give-go, but it's a flash through instead from Berez. Big bid. This time, Staff can't win the horizontal battle. Having gone up big before. Oh, and there's an opportunity. Great second collection. Charret just hanging on in there. But you can see a little bit of nerviness now with this French side.
Yeah, they're starting to jump early as small, but like we said, the Belgians kind of shown they're a dominant force in the air.
Charret launches that one just softly on the inside channel. And that's a big bosh away. No call, just a clean denial. Once again, they call Donat's number, and it's Decana who answers the phone.
Another year or two, he'll be better than both the brothers, won't he? If this is something to go by.
Well, I believe the look is that he resembles Lando, but plays more like Tobert. I mean, but he's making a name in his own right, not just a sibling, but a star in front of us. Of course, got the call up to the U24s level already. And that is going to have great curvature. Oh, just misses the layout. Another moment for the Belgian D-line where they just can't quite find the magic.
Yeah, and I think he's gone off with an injury, having coming on for an injured player in this point. And I thought he was going to get that one. I think maybe he just, I guess the injury, perhaps he just jumped / landed a small bit awkward. I know the throw ended up looking a little bit low, but I actually thought the throw was, I thought he was going to run it down.
Well, it did require the layout, so, you know, half a heartbeat too early, if anything, that had the correct edge on it to just keep it all away from the French defenders who know exactly what the Belgians want to do, but they can't seem to stop them from trying to execute it.
Yeah, and I think whatever way this points ends, I think the Belgians will have taken two things away. They know when they put on a line they can get the turns, and two, the French also know that.
Well, this point has doubled the number of turnovers from the French O-line so far. The Belgians are starting to sniff around. Nice one. Péchard pops that, but it pops off the fingers. What a collection on the second effort, off the ankles. Wow. Marin Perez, goodness gracious.
Yeah, they get it about the 20th time of asking. I want to just give a shout out there to the Belgians. That was a huge defensive effort on that play. Couple of great blocks, and they were close to everything. They were unlucky not to get that one. And again, you kind of maybe think that was an important one for the Belgians to get, but they're within two. They've shown there that their D-line, when they put it on, they can get the turns. That's like, in my opinion, the worst the French offense has looked, and it's not because the French suddenly just started playing poorly. It's because that was just a proper, aggressive, nothing to lose, take a break if they score a D-line by the Belgians, and they can get the turns. We've seen it now, and again, if they can just get a little more clinical with their offense on the turn, they're going to be able to come back into this game in the second half, and no doubt they'll be able to get some breaks, and might just come down to how fit their top 10, 12 players are coming into the last 20 minutes of this game. But we'll let the serenading sounds from the Belgian sideline take us into half now. So give these players a moment's rest, and we'll be back with you for the second half shortly.
Second half about to get underway here in the bronze medal match for the Open division at the under-20s level. The European Youth Ultimate Championships 2025, our Trnava edition. Myself, Hannah Pendlebury, alongside John Doherty. Well, Doc, you were slinging some shade in the evening sun at this Belgian outfit. Have they impressed you?
Yeah. I've decided at this tournament that, you know, after I've seen how experienced everyone is, I can be a bit more. I come into this event thinking it's juniors. I gotta be taking it easy on everyone. But I said, you know, these players are all playing a long time. We're going to hold them to a high standard. And I think again they're still struggling a little bit with the offense. But the Belgians later in that half, when they put out the line, they showed that the defensive side of things is there. And I just want to see them have that little bit more clinicalness, if that's a word, with their offense. They have been a tad unfortunate that they've slightly overthrown some players, and it could easily be a level game right now. But I want to just see them come out in the second half and keep that same energy going. And if that means they have to put a couple of players out there for most of the rest of the game, then I think that's what they should do.
Well, the French Open lads starting out this second half on offense, so their advantage will become even more apparent. Unless, of course, the Belgians can get themselves a nice big block and actually convert it. They have had chances, 4 of them total, as we see the French stream upfield. That one sat and milked by Charret. Now Le Taillet. That one a little low, but easy handled enough. And now Negre. Nice grab and quickly moves through. Vivard. Oh, that is just an absolute peach of a forehand. And nothing required, no sweat from Marin Perez, just an easy hang time catch.
Yeah, one of the leading stats scorers at this French team. And again, that that point there kind of reminds me a little bit of what I was a tad frustrated with the Belgians in the first half, where I felt they're letting the French kind of play more the style they wanted. And again, I know I keep repeating it's hard to stop everything, but you just can't. I just don't think they can keep afford to forcing them under and hoping that they're going to just turn on these like unders, open sides, and maybe like slightly intricate inside breaks. Yes, they got one turn on it a while ago, but they're not going to turn that much on it. And we saw in the last point when I guess the Belgians put on a power line that they're capable of getting the turns, and they're going to have to start getting them soon, because it's very hard to imagine a situation where the Belgians are going to get like 3 or 4 breaks in a row. But the Belgian line, the defense, if they get their offense a bit more together when they do get the turn, they're definitely capable of getting the 3 or 4 breaks that they need to turn this game around. But they're going to have to start getting them soon. And the first thing they have to start doing is slotting in their O points.
Well, total turnovers in the first half for the French O-line was just 4. A pocket full more, 6 for the Belgians. If they can keep that O-line out when the French are in control of the disc, then who knows? Panemans. De Klerk across. Then back to Van Quelli. Runs and guns. Softly fakes does Panemans and then sends back. Deslova puts it low, but Andrian holds on. And in the shades, that one just about reaches past the fingertips. Andrian flashes the fakes. Then Panemans on the goal line, knocking on the door. A creative shot all the way across to De Force. And then sinks it for the score. Well, trades to start the second half, and both of them clean as a sheet.
Yeah, that's much better from the Belgians as well. It's good to see they didn't rely on the deep shots as much to score there. That one looked more like what the French has been doing earlier in the game. And it looked somewhat easy for the Belgians, and I don't think I've been able to say that too much of their offense in this game so far. So that's a really positive sign that they come out and their first offensive point of the second half, they can do that. And now it's just going to be a case of getting one of those breaks. Like I said, they need to get one kind of early, manage their timeouts well. I think a lot of this is going to come down to some good coaching decisions as well, knowing when to push and when maybe if you need to take a breather. But again, perhaps they're a team that are just going to use their whole roster. Maybe they're looking at this bronze medal game as an opportunity to get everyone on. Different teams can approach it different ways, and if you're a team that maybe has had teams that have already, some of these players maybe already have medals, maybe you might value getting everyone on to win it as an entire team rather than pushing your core at the end. But again, I always view it, you know, you've all trained together to get each other to this level, so just because maybe someone isn't on that much doesn't mean they aren't a huge part of the reason you got here, because if they weren't pushing everyone else on the team, you wouldn't get here. So well, it's easy to say that perhaps when you're the person who gets to play, but
no, I think that's really, really normal. I think especially you see it at the kind of university level, college programs coming out of the US. There was actually a deep look interview with one of the winners of the men's division in the USA. And he was saying about the most emotional moment for him of winning that championship was actually the game in the pool stages when they knew they'd sealed the deal to send themselves into the championship bracket, and they let those, you know, lower spots take charge, and they got the win anyway. And all of them in floods of tears, but lots of emotions on the line to take a medal home here in Slovakia. That one a little bit big, but of course has the jets to run it down. That's Perez. And again, quick movements. Charret, so dynamic with the disc. Neg tosses back. And that one's going to be a big charge required, but just runs out of nitrous oxide. And that sails past Nedko. This time, the Belgians doing it with pressure rather than interruptions.
yeah, and I think, like I said, they're going to need to start getting the breaks soon. So I really think if the Belgians slot this in quickly on the first possession, it might change the momentum of the game slightly.
Dumont and Delanotte across to Takana. Swish inside with no pivot, love that. Delanotte and Dumont. Well, this is much more likely to unlock the box.
Yeah, this is looking really good. I'm expecting them to score here.
Mottcam with the assist, and that one goes to Laney for the break at long last. After so many times of asking, the Belgians put one back on the French.
Yeah, the coaches need to tell the parents on the next one, if they get the next break, just storm the field. Just absolutely. I think that one was much needed, and I fancied their chances to go down and get another one. I don't think that was necessarily a power line, and again, maybe they don't want to do it, but if you really want to put a lot of a dent in the confidence of the French, you come out here and you maybe put on that big power line, and potentially if it doesn't work out, you just consider even using 2 timeouts after if it's a long enough one. But this is a big opportunity here now. Perhaps the French, it looks like they're on the line again, but I don't think the French need to panic yet. But again, the Belgians got that one break, and I said they needed to get one early, so it's good. Maybe they don't need to push for that second one yet if they feel confident their O-line is going to keep playing how it's looked in the last few points.
So 9-8 the score. France coming out on offense for the first time in this game, twice in a row. Of course, they came out the second half on offense, but they had that 5-minute break in between. And so now the tally changes just that little bit. France's defense 2 for 6, Belgium 1 for 5. Beautiful pull, just in bounds. That is absolutely fantastic and will allow them to put on huge amounts of pressure. Quickly trying to get away from jail. Oh, and that is just a heavenly pass. Pichard looking around. Can they stay connected this French set? Backwards it goes to Charret. A little pop through. Perez. Flirts with that around backhand, but just has to take the easy reset. Oh, big layout, but cannot interrupt. Pichard sends through. And Charret will close the deal. That is a nice, strong hold off the back of an absolutely phenomenal pull.
Yeah, it was a great pull and a good chase down, and perhaps maybe they let it off, not saying it was necessarily a set play, but I think it was just a centered pass and a straight shot deep. And again, I do think the Belgians forcing the French deep is a good option there, but I think just on that first one in the end zone, you have them near the back, just keep them in the end zone for 1 or 2 passes, and instead you potentially just let them have a hook off maybe what was called as their first cut off essentially what was a centering pass. But again, it was such a good throw. As much as it looked like he was kind of wide open, the defender was in a reasonably decent position, and sometimes the throws are just good and you just have to accept, look, we can't stop the under and the deeps at the same time, and I've been saying that I think the Belgians should push them deep, so the French showing that time they were up to the challenge, so not going to be harsh on the Belgians for that one. I think it was completely fine, that point. Just unfortunate that the French were able to score from a Belgian perspective.
Well, the Francophone fans, of course, will be delighted with that one. Although this is now speedy movement upfield, already a third of the way. Big Bosch on the back of it, and I think that's going to be an accepted foul. Indeed, it is. Good spirit for Mondli, but just calm, patient movement now. Nice to see DeForce back on the field after taking that injury substitution. Always in those trackies, even in 20-something degree heat. But things cooling off now for the Belgian offense. They're going to juice it deep. Double coverage. Oh my goodness, well, nearly the second attempt or third, but just that extra bit of velocity added to it by Mundley.
I think both the French players actually did that. I think the Belgian player actually might have had a chance of getting to that on the way down, and I think the covering defender might have got the second touch, so good awareness there. And again, very aggressive shot by the Belgians there. But again, I think they're just going to have to trust themselves to come down with some of these. So yeah, second block there. It would have been very interesting if that defender wasn't there. We might have had the most unexpected catch of the weekend, or of the week.
Well, if you're going to have anybody come back onto the line to replace De Force, Trnava is a pretty good option as he tosses that visor away. Not quite off the field. Better at throwing frisbees than he is visors, clearly. But the parent patrol from Belgium trying to get behind the defense as Paré puts it high, but that is taken back down to earth by the Belgians.
Yeah, great jump on the block there. Maybe a bit casual by the French player to throw it over, try and throw it over his head from that distance. You want the defender to be a bit closer so he doesn't have the same time to react, but Belgium's going to get a second chance here now.
And it's the hammer off the hands of Trnava into the end zone for the goal. Angenarts brings it down.
Yeah, Belgium's keeping this one alive. I know I said before the half if they got broken that it could have been a dangerous situation, but I didn't feel there was the same level of pressure on them to score this one, but they get the job done, and now they have a chance to get another break and potentially get it back on serve if they're to get this one, I think. So I believe, oh no, they wouldn't be back on serve. They started on offense, but you know, sometimes it doesn't matter. If you look at the scoreboard and the numbers are the same, you don't really care if it's offense or defense. If you're French, you're looking, hey, we had a chance to go 8-5 up, and now we're looking at the score and it might be 10-10. And again, if there was a team going to come behind in a very close game, I would say potentially the Belgians would have the momentum. If it was a wider gap, I would say there'd be no chance really of them coming back. But I said a while ago they needed to get a break soon, and they got that break immediately. And this is another opportunity. They're going to get one or two more opportunities. Maybe they can take this one.
Well, thus far it has only been the 5 turnovers that the French O-line has shown them. Although I'm sure they'll be disappointed with that number. They'd rather that be half or fewer.
And in fairness, most of those turns were actually earned by the defense. They weren't gifts. So credit to the Belgians for getting those 5 turnovers and not relying on the French to just throw the disc away.
Far side is Fayot, who rips it immediately. Trnava underneath it before anybody else, and the big man takes it down. Well, that was a bit spicy, wasn't it?
Yeah, I take back what I said. Good poach heads-up defense play there by the defender, but a bit of a gift by the French there.
Oh, but they're going to miss it just by a hair. De la Notte unable to bring that one back. And a short field opportunity now for the French. Pops back to Perez and then immediately squirrels up line. Raphael Charret with the goal and the hold after a little bit of tipsy-turvy.
Yeah, a bit of hook and D there by the French. But again, I think if you're the Belgians, and that's how you're going to expect to get the turnovers. I know they're probably a little frustrated that they turned over again straight away, but they're doing the hard part. They've got one of the breaks. They've now been getting, I think, a couple more turns more consistently. I know I said the French maybe just threw that one away, but maybe I'm not giving any credit to the players that were in around the disc or the heads-up defense. Just because the French players hook it away doesn't mean that wasn't the exact thing that the Belgians were trying to set up. Because they did have 2 players running deep, but the sideline helped, or not the sideline help, the defender on the wing poaching deep from Belgium there, he caught that with ease because it was just, they forced the French into essentially what was a terrible option, really.
Well, we talked about that excellent Belgian pull. That one is pretty good from the French too. De Force back on after his second injury sub off. Finds Panemans. I like that commitment, just turning and staring at the handlers. De Force, nice grab. Belgium's throwing the disc out of reach of the defenders, but sometimes almost out of the reach of themselves. Certainly that was what caused the spill on that previous defensive break opportunity. Vanquali The temptation is there, but it's a beaut of a lead. Oh, and then just dishing at the moment. Quali, too much on that one. Oh, that is such a shame. It looked so well held together. And then Ongenaar tempts the overshoot.
Yeah, to be honest, the Belgians, if they just had a little more float on one or two of these throws, they could potentially be in the lead. I realize this is
Well, this would have been perfect earlier on today when there was that little bit of breeze left to right. Those would have sit and hung, and that one is going to sit on an absolute silver platter to be staffled up. A dish serve, piping hot, and that is a great collection from the captain, Olivier Gibert.
Yeah, those are the margins. We've said it in a couple of games today, but just a tiny bit more height on a disc there would have been a score for the Belgians, and then instead it goes the other way, and then basically in one throw they just go the length of the field, and that's a bit of a kick in the what you call it there for the Belgians. I think they'll be really irritated by that one because they're in such a good position, and looks like we're getting a timeout here, and I think maybe, not sure if it was the Belgians that called it, but I think it's a good call by the coaching staff to potentially bring their players in and say, hey, look, this is how long's left, this is the score, we're in a bit of a tough situation here. You've nothing to lose. You've got, I don't know how long's left, maybe 15, 20 minutes. There's enough time to get it back. But let's just go for it now. And if they're ever going to go for it, now's the time to go for it. There's more time than that left. I think there's 25 minutes left. So loads of time left. But to get those couple of breaks, you really have to go. You have to go for it now. I'm trying to hold my tongue how I'd say it normally if I was talking to my own team, but I'm sure there's some pretty strong words being said in there about how you've worked for this, and here we go. And they've got all these fans on the sideline right beside them, and this is where it is. This is where the Belgians are going to show what they're made of. If you're the French coach, you're saying just don't screw it up.
I think that would probably be the worst possible thing to say to a pack of junior athletes when they're 12-9 up against a well-tooled Belgian squad.
These if they were all playing 2 years, yeah, you'd probably tell them don't even look at the scoreboard, but sometimes you can tell them, hey, look at the score. You're in control. You can afford some mess-ups and still be winning. Sometimes letting them know a mistake is okay is the best thing that can happen, but when you've got that couple of points lead, letting everyone know, hey, if you're the person who makes one mistake and we end up losing, that's not going to be the reason we lost. It's going to be all the mistakes we've made when we had that lead. So you just tell the players, hey, look, I'm the coach. It's on me if we lose from here. You just go out there and you just keep playing. Stick to what we know. Don't play with fear. The worst thing you can do is start playing scared. That's why sometimes I'm a bit of a fan of a player who in a tight spot, they're just willing to throw something aggressive. It's like, you know, it shows it's a player who's not scared. And the easiest way to lose a lead is to be scared.
Absolutely. Well, plenty of these athletes have had big game experience thus far in their careers. Medal matches, bitter defeats. But it always is nice to end your campaign with a national programme on a win. De Force has a little bit of separation underneath for Andrian, but pops back instead to Van Quali. This is great containment from the French, pushing the Belgians into their own territory. That one, though, a good escape. Peterkena through. Now Van Quali. Oh, that's just too low. A little bit of a stumble up line. There was separation for De Force, but the throw just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, the thrower banging the ground in frustration there. That's just one of those where you really just, he knows himself he's going to get that 9 times out of 10, and sometimes you just switch off a little bit, or you don't get low enough, you don't sit into the throw. And again, I can understand why he's frustrated there. These players hold themselves to a high level, I'm sure, but again, now they just got to try and get it back. It's not like they've turned in the worst place. They have the French in their own end zone, and now they just got to put the pressure on.
Well, a little bit of sagging off from Peterkena to try and make something happen. That one is just going to be way too low. So one bad throw deserves another, I suppose. Panemans to De Force. Peterkena. bouncing around, and they're going to send him to the break side with a hammer. Classic Belgian ultimate, and that will give the hold.
Yeah, the Belgians doing a great job here. I'm not sure if it's like intentional, because I can't fully see exactly what they're doing in the handler space on the dumps, but a couple of times now the French have been pinned in their own end zone, and they've basically decided that they're going to hook it, and I can only think that that's because the Belgian defenders are saying, hey, look, let them go deep, force them to make those amazing throws, because more often than not, they're not going to come down with it. And you could see with that one, that was nowhere near the intended target.
Just another look at that hammer in the golden sun here on Friday evening, local time, about 7:20. It's been a long old day. Both these teams, of course, bitter defeats in the semi-finals. Of course, the Italians will face off tomorrow against the Germans, who I think if you'd been putting money on this tournament, you probably wouldn't have favoured, but it's been a really great couple of programs coming out of the German nation, and the interconnectivity as well of their coaching sets across the age and gender mixing divisions. Nice quick, swift swish back across. Wu. Nice and easy to Negre. Then Fernandez. A little bit of a slowdown, but this is really good, quick movement from the French hander set. In nicely to be Viviard. Viviard sends through. Now it's Le Tailleur. Well, holstering here. Le Tailleur, of course, getting that big matchup. Nice grab, full stretch for Negre. Makes it look work a day.
Yeah, the French doing a really good job here of isolating one player almost every time. And the Belgians are going to need to adjust and try and get another defender up into this space, because right now it looks like it's going to be almost impossible for the Belgians to get a turnover.
And Arthur Negre in the front of the stack just saying, I would like us to call a timeout, please. And Wu will acquiesce to his request.
Not sure if I like that timeout by the French, but I guess they know better than me if they found maybe that they were actually struggling more than I thought. I did say they had a lot of space, and it looked like they were doing a great job, but in fairness, for the past 5 or 6 passes, they had been going back and forth. So again, maybe the Belgians just putting on a lot more pressure, and again, getting, you know, they hold them out. The French obviously called the timeout because they weren't happy, so the Belgians clearly getting something right there.
Well, I mean, it wasn't entirely clear who called that timeout after the break for the French to take it to 12-9. One would suspect it would be the Belgians to stop the momentum from charging away, but leaving yourself with only the one timeout to burn, especially in this situation where everything seemed pretty settled, if slow, is an interesting shot, especially because live game timeouts, you are having to start from static. I think there's probably a good 3 seconds on the stall, Doc.
Yeah, a couple of seconds, but I don't think it's not going to make that much of a difference. I don't think the French have had too many times where they've got higher in the stall, and we're looking here at the stats, and can see a couple of nations very heavily reliant on one or two key players. I think the Czechs may be somewhat unfair, but for the Romanians, 2 brothers going to be going back having a good old laugh about this. I'm not sure if there's anyone realistically that can pass out either of them there. I think everyone else is done, and yeah,
well, Matej Zalushki, you know, he had a pretty good go at getting past Alicia.
Yeah, he did. It's 2 big units, those 2 lads, and then yeah, German player tomorrow. I didn't see the 5th name, but he's going to probably have to lead his team to victory if he's going to get into 2nd place.
But of course, it's about way more than just the stats that our scorekeepers collect. But thank you, massive thanks as always to all of our wonderful volunteer crew keeping this championship running. Negre. who was the one that was calling for that timeout. Clearly wanting some freshness. Charret up to Wu. Flirts with that low backhand break. Charret. Oh, and a layout, one hand, almost as he's falling over. Absolutely great effort. Luis Fernandez keeps the dream alive and brings that one home.
Yeah, they changed there. I think they brought just an extra handler out, or they didn't seem to be creating. It's weird. They seem to be giving less space to create ISOs than they were previously, but that time it looked a lot cleaner. So again, good work by the French coaching staff there. Clearly decided to have a little chat about what they were doing wrong, and they called the timeout. They bring it back in, and again, I know it was a layout for the grab, but that looked like they moved it forward a lot quicker there than they had in the previous few points, where they didn't necessarily look like they were struggling to get the passes off, but they weren't really moving it forward.
So 13-10. The French 2 goals away for taking away the dirty gold, as we like to call it, that bronze medal, getting the final victory of their campaign. Both of these teams 6-1, and those two common opponents, the Italians and the Germans, who will go toe-to-toe tomorrow afternoon. Of course, it was a very narrow margin of victory for the Belgians, just that 11-10 win over the Italians, whereas it was a shellacking delivered by the French to the Germans in the pool stages. Certainly for the quality of the sides that we've got in our open division. Panamans. Through to De Force. High and easy for De Slova. Trying to grind his way up line. Pisano puts it out, and that is bopped away. A little bit too soft, and asking many efforts from Pierre-Jan De Force, who's come off twice with an injury sub. I feel like he's pretty magic, Doc, but they got to stop asking him to make these big plays.
Yeah, but I guess when you're in these kind of games, when you're up against a team that I think realistically is a good bit stronger, you kind of have to just trust that you're going to be counting on your main players to have the game of their lives to get the result here. And obviously, if he's putting his body on the line and coming off multiple injuries, I guess he's putting in that effort. So we're not going to fault the effort of the Belgians here. I think maybe perhaps the French just that bit too good. And I wasn't sure how the French would react to come out playing for bronze, because I imagine they came into this as the intention was to win this tournament. But
we are starting to see the French spread a little bit more of the love around their roster. So we see Paré having reapplied his visor. Shoot that one through to Godin. A little bit quiet from the upfield, but they find that one thread through to Caligaro. Oh, and that is a sky ball and a half, a pack developing underneath it, and it pings off the fingers of William Bolo.
Yeah, Belgium's going to get another chance here now. You feel like going to need to slot this one in.
De Force has Panamans in the hand of space alongside. Fakes away, and then underneath is Andrian. De Slova. A little high, but easy for Panamans. Oh, and that's a sky ball dished. And the French this time are the ones that come up the better after being blocked before. Boileau redeems. So second opportunity for another break in this game. A scramble up line, but well held on. Just an easy to Chevalier. Boileau sits that one up. And the stumble just allows the ease. Trying to get a little bit greedy. The Chevalier sends back. Gibert over the top, and a ripper of a grab. Full stretch of fair for Erwan Paré.
Yeah, great grab there. I thought he was going to take flight, and then he just reached out and he just stuck the landing. I was expecting a big rolling dive there after that one, but he made something that started off looking very difficult, looked very easy in the end. And 14-10 now, and it's kind of a weird one. The game kind of there was never too many stages in this where I kind of felt like it was kind of out of reach of the Belgians until I looked at the last point. It was 13-10, and you just got that feeling that it's going to be hard to see them coming back. And again, the French get this one, and I think I've said it once or twice, it's going to take one of the best comebacks ever for them to come back into this one. But again, they just kind of did it almost, so I guess you use the word professionally, where they just went about the business and they kept getting the job done. And the Belgians got a break early in the second half when it was needed, but just unable to capitalize on the early one. And a couple of this that just went a bit too far, them just put it slightly out of reach. And it was always going to be a tough one for the Belgians coming into this game. Again, I do think the French are, in my opinion, like the potential, like the Italians beat them, and I do think the French are the second best team at this tournament. But you know, the way the schedule worked out, it didn't matter because the Belgians beat the Italians and the Italians are in the final. So sometimes it doesn't matter, like I said. But again, Belgians are going to want to hope to finish strong here. It's been a great tournament for them to get to this position.
Well, and certainly it is a great record for them. I believe it does equal their best at this level. But there's so many of both of these teams still hanging around. As that one hangs out into the space and is taken away. On goes the cloak for the Scoob. So now the French slowly walk towards the disc. Mandino just taking his time and then back in play. Oh, and that's just too easy, isn't it? Game, set and match. Noah Péchard finishing it off, and it will be France taking home the bronze in the open division.
Yeah, great. Truly deserved by them all this week. They've been a really professional team. They topped their group. Nobody really gave them too much trouble. They did have one or two tight games, and again, great work by the Belgians as well. Also, I wasn't sure what to expect from them coming into the week, but they won the games that mattered when it counted to get to this stage. The Germans just seemed to just hit form at the right time and take their spot from the final. But both these teams have a lot of players who are going to return. I'm sure there's a lot of emotions, but the one thing I can say for both these teams is you're young. If there's any disappointment or anything like that, you know, have a think over the next few days about, you know, maybe if you want to get involved with teams, or if you're a player who's maybe this was your last chance to try and get a medal, you know, get involved with the team the next season and help push them forward, pass on your experience, because that's one of the first things that got me into coaching, was being involved with teams where I felt like, we just didn't get the result we wanted. And that's the best motivation you can have is experience. And again, both these teams, great teams all week. And the French, again, like I said, I think they're deserved bronze medalists. Congrats to them. And again, both these teams to watch out for next year, with so many returning players, especially if the event's going to be on in Europe.
Well, it really was a little bit too hot to handle. I think the extra duty some of the Belgian stars had to play was just causing a couple of things to go askew. But I love the ability for some of the different faces from the France D-line to get that one done. It is the last time at bat for U20s for that man who got that big block at the end, Descoob. Peyo Descoob is 19 now. And of course, you say your last shot at a medal only in this division. They will head on up to the U24s, to the seniors team. The future of Belgium and France continues to be bright. And these two teams, all these athletes will face off many times. But that will wrap us up for a fine Friday. The evening sun setting behind us. We will be kicking off with incredible finals tomorrow. First at bat, it will be the women's division at 9 a.m. Central European summertime. For myself, Hannah Pendlebury, for John Doherty, for all of our wonderful crew on this EUF broadcast. We will see you tomorrow for the gold medals.